But another thing that we share is this situation. Whatever we bring from our backgrounds and past, whatever that is, now we are here together. And this situation that we have is something we share. So this is a very Buddhist idea of being in the moment, being present. We tend to sometimes get caught up in our prejudices, preconceived notions. This happens a lot, for example, just in daily life. I have an expectation, what kind of life I want to have. Or some expectation of like how I want people to treat me or whatever. And you're so caught up with that you fail to see what you actually have. You fail to be aware of the reality. And sometimes what you have is better than what you were expecting. You were like so fixed in trying to get through your life. So that's a very Buddhist idea, being present in the moment, connecting with the person in front of you. So he says, well, values are not things these are things that we create. We whatever the norms, the traditions, the customs from Korean culture, Japanese culture, Argentinian culture, these are not things that were given by God somehow. These are things we created over decades and centuries of interaction. So he says we could create new values out of this situation. So if you listen, if you pay attention, you can start recognizing what can we do now. You are working class Korean man who's had these experiences, and now we have here a Muslim woman from Syria and some American young black man and whatever. We'll bring something, but now we're here together. What's going on here? What values can we create together? So I think that capacity of creating value is the central skill for being a global citizen.
So that situation where you mentioned 3 different people from 3 completely different backgrounds, and I guess you would. It's more of a challenge or a suggestion where, okay, what values can we create? Can you give an example of a value that could be created in that situation? To me, it seems very. I can only think of, say, humanistic values, like something we create maybe it's removal of prejudice or equal, the mindset that all men are equal, and all people are equal. So all men are equal sort of sounds contradictory, but all people are equal. Is that the type of thing that you're aiming at, or am I missing the point?
No, yeah, that's definitely this idea that we can transcend values that are local and towards values that are more universal. That's one way of thinking about it. But also, for example, this is maybe a silly example, but some values are very they're called sometimes technically thick values. Things that are thick are kind of very much connected to culturally particular practices.
Such as?
For example, a value of moral values of what it means to be a good person tend to be thin. So it involves things like not causing harm and being fair and things like that. But being polite is very culturally particular. What it means to be polite in Korea is very different from what it means to be polite in Germany.
Right.
The things that you do to be polite in Korea, if you do those same things, it might actually be rude in Germany.
Right.
So for example, the value like friendship. Friendship has some things that are kind of universal, but some things are very particular. And sometimes we can get stuck with our expectations. So I'll just give you an example from my personal experience. In Argentina, friendships, and especially kind of a male, same gender friendship, the chef with your buddies, kind of friendship, involve a lot of like actual expressions of care. Like you can actually say, "Hey, man, I love you."
Mm-hmm.
Like you can actually say those things, and like, and then you hug, and sometimes even like there's a little bit like kind of playful teasing, and all of that is part of like being friends. And if you don't do that, there's some kind of distance. Like, like if someone is just being nice to you, and then they don't do or say anything that could be offensive, that's not your friend. It's too removed, too distant. With your friends, you're more rough, kind of thing. But I noticed in Japan, there might be some of that. I never got to that level. But I noticed there is some aspect of expression, direct expression of respect. In Argentina, you could never say, "Oh man, I really respect you." It's weird. It's not part of friendship. You don't. Right. That's not. You can show that, but it's always indirectly. Like you show it with your actions over time. Like if you are loyal, if you're always there for your friends in moments of hardship or whatever, then that's how you communicate it. But you can't say it. It's weird. But in Japan, you can. So in my friendships with Japanese people who also happen to be kind of have international experiences, so they have an experience of culture beyond where they are, we could sort of really create a new value of friendship. It wasn't just that, I'm going to adjust to the way friendships kind of function in Japan. I'm visiting Japan and I'm going to be like that. I did that too in some contexts. Or it's not that I'm going to just come and treat you the same way I treat my friends in Argentina and I'm going to expect you to accommodate to that. In a way, we created something that was new.
It's like a fusion of cultures almost.
And it's, you could say, well, yeah, it's a kind of transcending to something more universal, but it wasn't. It was really more like creating something new. And what was nice about it is that if you say, okay, well, you have your own particular culture, I have my own particular culture, and we're going to go above it. And we're going to like elevate it to a different level, which is more universal. If that's the attitude, I could come and say, I actually know I have some special understanding of what is universal. I could come in and say, I can come in with that attitude and say, oh, you have your culture, I have my culture. Now let's all put that behind and let's move up to this universal level. Let's treat each other as human beings without looking at differences. And I could do that without actually trying to learn anything about your culture. I could just say, you leave your culture behind, I leave mine behind, and we're going to get at this higher level or whatever. But if we go in to say, we're going to create something together, you really have to pay attention to what it is that the other person brings and see how you can do something with that. So I, for example, in this case, there was just some things about sort of the nature of a friendship in Japanese culture that I was just having a hard time connecting with that, right. And it was just a rough spot and whatever. But that thing about respect, to me, it was like, oh, well, I can really learn from this. Because many times I remember feeling that I needed that this would be good to be able to be like that way with my friends. In my culture, I couldn't do it. And this is great. I can use it. that sense that's I think that's important, that people can find ways of connecting creatively that way.